as we focus today on rebuilding the education system and the future by us, this particular project, what I'd like to say is that education, as we all know, it's important for the well-being of a nation. In fact, it would be nice to start from the premise that nations have a destiny as individuals have destinies. Each nation has a specific destiny, what it can accomplish, and the contribution it can make in the community of nations or the committee of nations, just like individuals. And however, the destiny of a nation is hinged on the destiny of the individuals that make up the nation, or what you might call the citizenship of a nation. And by destiny here, I'm talking about the realizing and the maximizing of potential. A nation can only be great or as great as the people that make up that nation. It's the citizens that make a nation great. A nation cannot attain greatness by herself, unlike the individual who can go on to do great things by itself. So the whole essence of education, therefore, is to help individuals make their maximum contribution in life. And if we define education as that entire process of helping a person come to that place of discipline, of preparation, of equipping, to be able to then both identify their potential, maximize that potential, fulfill that potential, and make their maximum contribution in life, then we don't have to overemphasize the importance of education. In fact, Harvard University, which is one of the Ivy League universities in America, is not only the oldest institution in America, for example, it's also the oldest corporation in America. It was founded in 1836 by Puritan preachers. And one of the founding objectives of Harvard University was to train Puritan preachers who would travel around the country to help preserve the values that will help America to remain great. Which means that the first graduates of Harvard University were probably Puritan preachers. And the founding objective, part of the founding objective, was to train them in values and virtues and principles that would galvanize society and guide society to be able to maintain a certain kind of standard. And I think for me that is quite insightful, in the sense that this is the oldest corporation in America, the oldest institution, and the founding objective was to teach values to certain categories of people who would be able to make the commitment to teach values to the rest of society. It tells you that education is about values, it's about principles. And part of the challenge we are facing in Nigeria today is a challenge of deteriorating and decaying values. And if we have educational systems in Nigeria and institutions, and values are falling, they are declining, they are decaying, it means that they are missing in their what ought to be their founding objectives. I think the challenge we have faced, or part of the problem, is that maybe we've thought about education as the acquiring of degrees. Go to school, get a degree, get a certificate to be able to get a job, or get employment, or start something, or become an entrepreneur, or do something. But I think it's much deeper than that. There are two aspects of education, apart from the two dimensions of education, which is formal and informal. There is the acquiring of skills and the development of character. Any effective educational system should be able to accomplish both, should be able to make the man or the woman an individual of character, and be able to give them sufficient knowledge to be able to make a difference or a contribution over their own lifetime. Of course, education, as I've already mentioned, is also formal and informal. I've mentioned the fact that there are three levels of education, or three places in society where education occurs. Education occurs in schools, which are formal institutions. And then education occurs in religious settings or institutions, and then in homes. All these things we have to bear in mind, that in trying to solve the challenges we have with education in Nigeria today, we have to look at these three areas and think about what solutions that we can prefer to bring an answer to them. I would like to take a few minutes to talk about AMP, for example, what we decided to do. Once we saw the falling standards of education, we've worked with certain individuals. In fact, at some point, certain individuals from us, including Ms. Alero Aido Tobo, who probably will be part of the panel, worked with the Honorable Minister of Education, as Mrs. Obiageli Ezekwesili, at some point as special assistants in several areas. She worked with some of other people from the AMP network. They went down secondment and did some work with the Honorable Minister at that time. And based on what they saw and the statistics, we at the AMP network at some point in 2010 decided to focus on three core areas of society, what you might call planks of society. Education was one of them, politics and governance and the church. In education in particular, we held a number of series focused on education, at least two major ones. And out of that was formed what we call the Education Burden Bearers Group. What the group was commissioned to do was basically it was more like a think tank, a private think tank, to sit down and look at the ailing and falling standards of education in Nigeria and think about what ways we could make some contribution and what kind of interventionist programs we could come up with. And this group has continued to meet, and probably more than one NGO is going to come out of it. We are focused first on Lagos State, and then we can scale it up to other parts of the country. What they've done is look at the falling standards and to ask those poignant questions. What will it take to be able to bring the standards up to par, or to what can we do generally? And so we're working on that, and we're also working with other professionals who have a similar burden, who their own contribution is to become mentors and contribute some of their finances and provide some funding to be able to work with certain schools, particularly those schools where the pupils are from maybe less privileged homes, where they may not be able to afford education. The whole focus is to help with the standard of education itself by helping with the quality of teachers, to see what we can do with the quality of teachers and the quality of teaching, and in those areas of society, or those parts of society in Lagos where people may not be looking at, like a Jegule and so on and so forth. That's an ongoing project. Maybe other people might be able to talk about this some more. I think that the pastors have a privileged position to be able to teach values in society. In fact, I believe that one of the main thrusts of a pastor throughout the course of a year is to emphasize those values that can help individuals build the right character, that can make them to be the best citizens they can be, and that when they lead organizations or they own businesses or run businesses, that they can have the right kind of values that can drive the nation forward. Because remember that the process of societal transformation, the process of changing a nation, is from personal transformation to institutional transformation to societal transformation. If we want to jump from personal to society, or jump from just the individual to societal transformation without the transformation of the individual, we won't succeed. And I think that there are no better people prepared and equipped to assist with individual transformation, or what we might call personal transformation, than the leaders in religious institutions, particularly the local church, or what we call pastors of local churches. Because every week, for several hours, maybe 1 to 3 hours in a week, people sit down under their tutelage and teaching. Can you imagine the impact in the country if those pastors, that those sermons that they preach and share, were to have as part of the driving force the desire to be able to build the right kind of values that can develop the individuals and build character? I think it will have a huge impact, because there's a gap, there's a lack of character, there's a lack of integrity. But these things are taught, they're not automatic. It's not just the making of laws. Yes, out of a fear of laws, people will obey the rules. But it's possible for these laws to become an intrinsic part of individuals if they are taught, especially by respected religious leaders. So my advocacy is that the church must pick up and accept the responsibility of building her membership to be God-fearing members of society by teaching them those values. And I think that the teaching of values, the inculcating of values, is an integral part of education in any society. As a pastor, for example, I have a burden, and we're very involved with assisting society by working with the young people. Some of the people that you call it down and out of society. In fact, my conviction and my belief is that one of the reasons why Nigeria is not great is that many of those people who ought to make Nigeria great are walking the streets of Nigeria as the down and out of society. So I can dare say that perhaps some of the best governors we've never had are some of the people that are what you might call, in quote, the derelict of society, the people that in the Nigerian parlance is called the area boys of society. Some of those people have enough talent and giftedness in them that if only that those talents can be harnessed. So I have a burden, and I think that the average pastor must have a similar burden, to not just look at the people that the so-called educated, in quote, but look at the down and out and ask yourself, why are this number of people outside of the reach of formal education? What can we do about them? I also would like to, maybe before I leave that point, so whatever we can do for such people, I think that some of the church auditorium all over the city of Lagos and maybe across the country ought to be used for schools, because many of these halls are vacant from Monday to Sunday. They use them on Sundays, they use them midweek, and so on and so forth. You know, as we look at the future of education, we must think about an informal system that allows people to be able to go to schools in those informal environments. It's very important. It's very important that we use some of the existing talent to be able to educate the uneducated talent in our society. And that's what something we are thinking about. And I think that we should look at it holistically and think about what we can do to turn some of these churches and mosques into educational centers and find a way to maybe equip people and train them and certify them. You know, because that's one of the ways we can solve the problem of the high percentage of people that are out of school. And then the other thing I wanted to mention as we conclude is that because we accept the fact that the future of any nation lies with young people and lies with education, and that education can be both formal and informal, we also have to then ask ourselves that even the formal education system as we have it today, that it's my own humble submission, let me put it that way, that they are limited in scope, in the sense that there are many courses that are not being offered because they've never been developed, but that are key to the transformation of the country. If we keep limiting ourselves to those courses in Nigeria, architecture, engineering, building, quantity surveying, and so on and so forth, we limit the future of our country. We have to realize that to attain greatness, that we need to unleash the potential in people by realizing the fact that that the number of courses listed in our universities do not reflect all the courses that exist in society. There should be as many courses as there are problems in society. So we have to become very innovative about it. We have to break away from, we have to, in other words, think outside of the box. To start thinking that, you know, we have to de-emphasize some of those big courses and begin to emphasize some of the things that people take for granted. For example, there are many medical doctors that maybe that they'll be best as fashion designers, for example. You know, they'll be best, and you know, there are people that have high-sounding jobs that maybe will be best at just focusing on interior decoration and some of the other things that we can't talk about in this setting today. The point I'm really trying to make here is that to drive the country forward, we must be open-minded. We must accept the fact that we've not discovered all the causes that may be necessary for the development of a Nigerian nation. So we have to be open to that and not limit ourselves by the limited number of existing courses in Nigerian universities today. We have to focus more on researching those courses, you know, and as we conclude, I would like to emphasize that one of the areas where we are really failing is that even in places where we've had limited success in the development of a mind, we have lesser success in character development. There is a falling in the standard of character in society.